So today we're going to be taking a look at a scenario where Oceania goes to war. Now this will not just be Australia, New Zealand, and Papua New Guinea. I'm going to be including Southeast Asia as well, so we'll have the Southeast Asian countries, Indonesia, and the Philippines. And that's just to make this video a little bit more entertaining and less boring, since, you know, if it was just those three countries I mentioned earlier, the video would be like 3 minutes long. And this will be the capper for the What If Continent Had a Civil War series. This is the last installment. I did all the other continents minus Antarctica for obvious reasons, and this is the last one we're doing. So if you do enjoy this video, make sure to leave a like on it and subscribe to the channel if you're new. All the support is greatly appreciated. And let's go ahead and jump straight into the scenario. All right, so on team 1 we will have Indonesia, and on team 2 we will have Australia. Now why are these two countries? Well, that's because they are the two strongest countries in the region that we are doing in this video, Australia being arguably number 1 and Indonesia at number 2. Of course, there are a lot of factors that determine that, so maybe Indonesia's number 1 in your book and Australia's number 2. Either way, it doesn't really matter because they are the two strongest countries in this region, like I said. So let's go ahead and break down the sides. First off, we have New Zealand making the obvious decision of joining the Aussies, and from here it gets really confusing. We'll have the Philippines join up with Australia and New Zealand. There's a common friend between these three countries, which is of course the United States and Europe. I'm gonna have Papua New Guinea join up with Indonesia. And all of these islands, I mean, to be honest, let's just sink them because they're irrelevant to the war anyway, so bye-bye. Now we're going to have Malaysia joining up with Indonesia. Now this is the country that I was just looking at online and doing some research on. They don't really have any enemies other than Singapore and Brunei, and that's because of multiple reasons. Some disputes there and, you know, breaking apart issues that happened a few years ago. Well, I say a few years ago, it was more like a few decades ago. But there are tensions there, so we're going to be throwing Brunei on the side of Australia as well as Singapore, which is like a dot right there. And now we get to Southeast Asia. This is where things are going to get interesting. I'm going to go ahead and throw Myanmar on the side of the red team. And this will kind of set up the rest of Southeast Asia in a way. We'll have Laos and Cambodia join them, Vietnam on the blue team, and Thailand on the blue team as well. Now, Thailand's also kind of an interesting country that's fairly neutral, so I think they can probably swing both ways. But there's a strong case for saying that Myanmar is an enemy of Thailand, so this makes sense in the long run. And these are going to be our two sides for the video. We have Australia's team and Indonesia's team, and you can do your own rankings. I'm not going to say which side is stronger because I have my own opinions, and you will figure that out by the end of the video. And I just want to say that, you know, military isn't everything in these kind of scenarios. Location and geography is a big factor. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump straight into this war scenario. This war will start out, of course, in Southeast Asia, where the most land borders exist. Vietnamese forces will work with Thai forces in order to surgically cut Laos into two. Meanwhile, Vietnamese forces will do their own little thing down south, going into Cambodia and cutting off a lot of their coastal area. Elsewhere, we see the capturing of Brunei and Singapore. Now, Singapore is a pretty strong country considering how small it is, but unfortunately they're a little too small to really do any war things with, so I'm just gonna knock them out early. Realistically, they would probably like just hold out and, you know, fight in the city a lot. It would be kind of hellish, but I can't really show that here, so we'll be moving on. The Philippines will work to start to capture some of these islands. Actually, these islands might be theirs. I might be stupid. It doesn't really matter though. They eventually will make a landing on the north of Malaysia. Meanwhile, elsewhere, Thailand will take over the tail of Myanmar, as I like to call it, whereas Burmese forces, along with the help of Laos, people from Laos, they take over a large northern part of the Thai country. Doesn't really do too much to Thailand though, as Vietnam has their back as they start rushing straight into Laos. If you don't know, these two countries aren't particularly strong. Vietnam and Thailand are mid in terms of power. They're like top 40, but they're not like horrible. Compared to these guys, I'm not really sure where they rank, but definitely below Thailand and Vietnam. Main point is that they don't stand much of a chance, and Laos starts to feel the effects of collapse. The front that Myanmar was working on continues to expand unexpectedly, and down south, Malaysia and Indonesia work together to start entering up into the south of Thailand. The Philippines are kicked out of Borneo, and Australia makes a landing in Papua New Guinea. From here, their forces spread out as they quickly start to move into Indonesia as well and take over large portions of land. Eventually, the island of New Guinea is halfway under siege, and Australian troops continue their march forward. Back over in Southeast Asia, we have Laos finally getting kicked out as they are forced to surrender their forces. Myanmar's armies are all that remain. But Myanmar's forces aren't necessarily the greatest. If you remember, they went into a coup not too long ago. And the country is still relatively disorganized, and Thai and Vietnamese forces will take advantage of this disorganization and quickly move into the Burmese countryside and just start taking names and cities. Eventually, Myanmar just straight up collapses, and Cambodia is forced into surrendering as well. So, Southeast Asia went pretty predictable. The strong countries beat the weak countries. But there is one lingering issue, which is the amount of Malaysian and Indonesian forces which are sneaking up into Thailand. Meanwhile, Australia's campaign into New Guinea continues to go well, and eventually they're able to take out the entire island and start going after some of these surrounding islands in the area. One by one, the islands start to fall as Indonesia isn't really doing their part in protecting them, but at the same time, is there really that many people living here? Like, their population is, a lot of them are down here. You have the 3 main islands, of course, and then this weird thing right here. How many people are living here? Alright, never mind, there's about 20 million people living in Sulawesi, so that's a lot more than I thought there was. I will keep that in mind as we continue to invade Indonesia. Timor-Leste, I forgot they existed, so they were going to be on the red team, but they don't exist anymore, so it doesn't matter. Back up north, the Indonesian and the Malaysian militaries continue to march forward, and there's really no stopping them as of now, as the Thai and the Vietnamese, their forces are scattered about, but are quickly closing in on this front line. The Philippines will try to make another landing in Malaysia, and this time it sticks a little bit better, as they're able to reinforce their front line and prevent any counteroffensive from taking place. Australia will continue their campaign of island hopping, just like the Americans, just less efficient. And up north, Thailand will be able to finally recuperate itself. Did they lose Bangkok? They might have lost their capital. I don't know how realistic that would be, but we're gonna undo that. But their forces re-engage and are able to push back the Indonesians pretty well. At this point, they are now focusing in on going into Malaysia as a whole, as they finally enter into the country. Next up, we have the Philippines getting re-kicked out of Malaysia despite their reinforcement efforts, and the Indonesians start to fight back against Australia, retaking some of their islands and pushing them further and further away from their capital. They liberate Timor-Leste and move into some of these other islands, getting closer and closer to New Guinea. Additionally, we see them push back up against the Southeast Asians, and at this point, the borders are looking pretty calm, and neither side really knows what to do at this point. You can continue to fight over here in the Panhandle, but that will likely be a back and forth scenario. The Philippines can attempt to keep invading Malaysia, but that hasn't worked so far, and I don't think it's going to work in the future. And Australia and Indonesia are going to keep throwing hands on the islands. So what do we do here? Well, Australia's going to start sending their naval assets up towards Java, and they're going to try to pressure Jakarta and hopefully maybe try to capture it. I mean, good luck though. So over time, the Australian Navy moves closer and closer to Java, whereas Indonesia will continue to focus in on retaking these islands and eventually getting to New Guinea, which they do. They make a landing on the island and start to beat back the Australian forces, but are eventually stopped right over here in their part of their country. Back over in Southeast Asia, we have Thailand breaking through the border once again and now threatening into Malaysia. This goes well for a little bit until it doesn't, as reinforcements arrive and push the Thais back to their border. Next up, we see the Philippines attempt another invasion, this time into this little island. Strange area to want to do this, but they do it pretty successfully, although this is a very thin amount of land, and eventually, you guessed it, they push back in a counteroffensive. So everything that's been happening so far has been happening for nothing. Yes, the blue team gained land over here, but they also lost land over here. Australia's navy is currently on the shoreline of Java, but they aren't doing anything because they can't make a landing. So Australia will try to do the whole island hopping campaign again, but this time they find it a little bit more difficult, as Indonesia, as they were retaking these islands, reinforced them heavily with military assets and military bases. So each island is more and more costly to invade and conquer, and this ends up kind of exhausting Australia's military. They eventually are forced to stop their island hopping campaign, and this gives time for Indonesia and Malaysia to counteroffensive against Thailand, if I can select the right color to use. The Philippines will do another invasion into Malaysia. This time they actually reach down and go into Indonesia, and even get close to liberating Brunei. That is until, you guessed it, counteroffensive. The Philippines are probably the most unsuccessful country so far. They have done nothing. But hey, don't give up hope. Never give up hope. That is unless you're these guys. They gave up hope a long time ago. Alright, so at this point, it's a stalemate. Neither side is making any advancements or gains against the other, and the two sides agree to peace, and the peace treaty is drawn up. Let's go ahead and take a look at that peace treaty. Alright, let's go ahead and break down this exhilarating peace treaty. Starting in probably the most interesting region, Southeast Asia. There used to be like 5 countries here, now there are 3. Cambodia and Laos got annexed and split between Vietnam and Thailand morphed into this kind of monster looking thing. I mean, it's kind of terrifying looking, I'm not gonna lie. Myanmar got cut, and they are still existing, but probably very poor, or I guess even more poor than they already are. Moving down to Indonesia, we see that Malaysia got land from Thailand in kind of a trade-off, and they also annexed Singapore and they annexed Brunei. Indonesia got literally nothing from this war. Maybe they united with Timor-Leste. The Philippines also got nothing from this war, and Australia was able to annex Papua New Guinea. And yeah, that's gonna do it for this video. So bye. No, I'm just kidding. But if you did enjoy this video, make sure to leave a like on it, subscribe to the channel if you're new. All of that support is, say it with me, greatly appreciated. I say the same phrases over and over again. Well, the greatly appreciated phrase is fairly new, but I use it every video, so it's already repetitive. I don't like being repetitive, even though my content is very repetitive. You get the point though. Trying to think of things to talk about. When you're seeing this video, I'm getting ready to graduate high school. That's cool. I got a lot of trips coming up, so I'm not going to be around much. I got to do a lot of pre-recordings and just all that fun stuff. But I'll be out of school, so that'll be a lot easier than it normally would have been. And yeah, stream channel. I said I was going to start doing a lot of streams over there, but I just realized that June is fairly booked up for me. So I'm probably going to be spending a lot more of June just pre-recording videos before I go on vacation, because I have like 3 vacations. Originally there was only 1, but now there's 2 more, which isn't a bad thing at all. Just means more YouTube work for me and a lot less time. But yeah, I wouldn't expect there to be very many streams until July. That's when I start to get a lot more free. But even then I have to start preparing for college. So like, when am I gonna have free time? That's a joke. I'll have a lot of free time. But anyway, once again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. And of course, thank you to all the super fans. This includes Kylie Speaks Plays, German Edits, A Random Guy, Patrick Clauser, Life Lamau, JB Countryball 12, Friaza, Hammertoad 45, CTG Canada Flag, Poland Country Ball, Nevada Garbage Trucks, Yakko, DW Cool Dude, and Serminator. Thank you guys.